Okay. Hello, meron na? Can you guys hear me now? Yun pala. So, yeah. Yun. Sorry, meron akong hindi napindot. Hindi ko na-add yung sarili ko dito sa stream. So, that's why you can't hear me. Okay? Konti pa lang naman sinasabi ko. Okay, so let's start from the top. Okay. Whew. Ayan, nagsasalita ako kanina na hindi niyo pala ako narinig. Hindi ko kasi chine-check itong mga ano. Ayan. Anyway, so yeah, welcome guys. I think we have to start now. Parang ano, ang dami, medyo marami-rami din pala yung sinabi ko. Pero hindi niyo ako narinig. So, thank you at sinabi ninyo. Alright, anyway, so for today, we're going to talk about the measures of central tendency. We have the mean, median, and the mode. Okay. So we are being surrounded by a lot of data, it says here, and most of this data we have to deal with not only the researchers but for us teachers also. We are constantly being presented with a lot of data in our classroom, and we have to make use of this data, and for them to make sense, okay, then we have to perform some calculations using the measures of central tendency. Okay, for those who are teachers already, when you have test results of your students, or sometimes you record the tardiness of your students, the number of absences of a certain students, the height of your students sometimes, right? You also get their weight and many other data that you are organizing in your class. So you have all these data, and sometimes when you just leave them there or just record them without uh, calculating like the mean, median, or mode, then this data does not make sense at all. Okay, but you know the data that we are collecting in our classroom are actually valuable. Okay, in helping us decide in or make instructional decisions. Okay, even in classroom management, this data that we collect inside the classroom will definitely help us manage our classrooms well. Okay, for example, test scores, okay, the quizzes that you give to your students, if you just check and record them without trying to look deeper into these test scores of your students, then these numbers or the quizzes or the test results will not serve its purpose. Okay. If you remember in your assessment in learning, we assess our students because we do not only want to know their performance, but also we use the results of this assessment to assess ourselves as teachers. And one way of doing that is, of course, computing either the mean, the median, or the mode, whichever applies. Okay, so the purpose therefore, or the reason why we have or we use the measures of central tendency is that because we wanted a single number that would describe the whole data set, or a single number that will help us describe the characteristics of a certain group from where the data is drawn. So we start with the mean. Okay, the mean is the arithmetic average of a set of numbers. It is a widely used measure of position It's actually considered the most reliable, but at the same time, the most sensitive measure of central tendency or position. Okay, the reason why we say it's um, sensitive is because it is greatly affected by extreme scores. So when we talk about extreme scores, either extremely high or extremely low scores as compared to majority of the members of the data set. And we call this extremely low or extremely high scores as outliers. So for example, let's say we have, let me just type here, let's say we have this data set like two, say, scores in a 20 item test, three, then we have 14, 15, 15, we have 16, 17, 17, and let's say this are our data. Okay, the results of a test score, for example. Oops, sorry. So, kung makikita niyo dito, majority of the scores are from 14 to 17. Okay? So, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Let's have another one here. 10. Okay? So, most of them are like 14, 15, 15, 16, 17, and 18. But there are two scores here that are extremely low, which is 2 and let's just have one, which is 2. Okay? Now, if you're going to compute for the mean, when you compute for the mean, guys, you just get the average, of the whole data set. So you add them divided by the number of cases. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So I just want to show you on how extreme scores can affect the mean of a data set. So if you're going to compute that, anong average niyan? Will you try, guys, to compute if you have your calculators with you? So what's the average of this data set? 2, 14, 15, 15, 15, 16, 17, 17, and 18. So that's 129. Average, divide nyo dapat. Average divided by the number of cases. So, okay, it's 14.33. So, now, you try to remove 2. Tanggalin nyo yung 2. Average po tayo, ano? So, divided by 9 yan. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So if you're going to take the average, it's 14.33. So now, what I want you to do is to, let's say, remove 2. Pag wala yung 2, i-add nyo ulit. So 129 minus is 127 divided by 8 this time. It's divided by 8. So 127 divided by 8 will give you 15. Tama ba ako? Bakit iba-iba yung nakukuha niyo? 127 divided by 8 na lang kasi tinanggal natin yung 2. So the answer would be 15.875. Okay, yeah, it's 15.88, which is somewhere at the middle of these scores, di ba? Pero kapag meron siyang outlier na 2, lumalabas na yung ating average ay 14.33, which is, kung makikita mo, mostly of the scores ay nasa between 15, 16, 17, 17, and 18. Okay? and we get 14 point something doon sa una. So that's how measures an extreme score would affect the mean, okay, or the average. So kung meron tayong extreme score, maapektuhan yung ating ah, mean, okay? Kaya tinawag siya na highly sensitive to outliers. Outliers yung tawag natin again sa extremely low or extremely high scores. That's why sometimes hindi ito ginagamit kapag meron tayong mga tinatawag na outliers because of that. Kasi hindi kung titignan mo yung lalabas na mean ay hindi siya within doon sa clusters ng mga scores, okay? Minsan nasa labas siya ng clusters ng score or nandun siya lang sa pinakamababang score doon sa cluster na yon, okay? Which does not represent the center of the uh, data set. Okay? Kaya sinasabi natin na it is greatly affected by extreme scores. Okay? So yeah. So yun na. Yun yung ating mean. So again guys, in statistics, pag sinabi nating mean, we are talking about average also. Okay? So pag tinanong what's the average, what's the mean, pareho yung tinatanong nila dyan. Okay? Alright? So do not be confused na pag sinabing anong average, okay, hindi mo alam ang gagawin mo. Ano yung mean? Ano yung mean? So, mean is average din. Okay? Pero sabi nila, if you are an average person, do not be mean. Being mean is not good. Okay? Nakuha niyo ibig ko sabihin. Pero syempre, kapag matalino kang tao, if you are above average or someone who's brilliant, you still don't have the right to be mean to other people. Ayan. May connect lang natin yung mean tsaka average. Alright, so thank you guys for your inputs. And yan, nakita ko sila. Then we proceed to median. The median is a positional measure that divides the set of data exactly into two parts. It is the observation that is centrally located between the highest and the lowest observation. Okay. When your mean, when there's a presence of an outlier in a data set, and mean is not a good measure of position, then your next option would be to use the median. Okay, so gagamitin natin yung median if there are few extreme scores or outliers that would distort the mean because the mean uses all data points in the calculations. In other words, yung mean kasi, pag kinocompute natin siya, um, lahat ng mga scores sa dataset ay ginagamit natin. Just like what we did kanina, we add all the dataset, members of the dataset. So kasali lahat sila. But in the case of the median, hindi lahat kasali yung mga dataset. Ang ina-after lang natin ay yung nasa gitna. So halimbawa, if we have scores like 8, 15, 15, 16, 22, no, let's make this 12. And then 18, 19, and 20, for example. Okay, so we have here 7 numbers. So we have 12, 15, 15, 16, 18, 19, and 20. If we are talking about the median, sorry, titignan natin yung pinakagitnang number. So we arrange this from lowest to highest. And after arranging them from highest to lowest, you locate the center the middlemost number in the data set after arranging them either ascendingly or descendingly. So in this case, we arrange it descendingly, ascendingly pala, at ang pinakagitna dito ay itong 16. So in this case, our median is 16. Okay? So kung makikita niyo sa median, only the middlemost number ang ating kino-consider. Okay? Unlike in the mean, all members of the dataset are considered. We add all of them, then divided by the number of cases. Kaya pala naapektuhan siya ng extreme scores. But for the median, hindi siya affected ng extreme scores because what we are only after is the middlemost number. Okay, in this case, it's the fourth. Okay, the fourth member of the data set. Now, you might ask me, paano pag even sila, even numbers? Let's say 20. So, 8 na ito. So, ang pinakagitna dito ay itong dalawa. Na? Gitna because there are 3 scores to the left and 3 scores to the right. Okay? So, yung sila yung pinakagitna. But we have two numbers. So, what we usually do is we get the average of the two numbers and that will be our median. So, the average of 16 and 18 is 17. Okay, so in this case, the median is 17. Okay, so itong mga 12, 15, 15, 19, 20, 20, hindi natin sila nagamit sa pagko-compute. Yung gitnang numbers lang. Kaya ito siguro kahit 2 yan, which is a extreme score, kahit 2 pa yan, hindi pa rin affected itong ating median. Okay, the median will still be 7. Okay? So, ayan. Kaya kung meron tayong extreme scores, instead of using the mean, we make use of the median. Okay, that's right, Hazel. The answer there is 17. So for the mode, okay, the mode is the highest most most frequently occurring score or number in the data set. It is the score with the highest frequency in a distribution. In a frequency distribution graph, the highest point in the graph is the mode. So in other words, when we talk about the mode, ito yung pinakamaraming beses na nag-o-occur na scores. Okay? So for the mode, pwede siyang unimodal, isa lang, isang score lang yung may pinakamaraming frequency na nauulit. Pwede rin namang bimodal, ibig sabihin dalawa yung mode. Okay, pwede rin naman tri and so on or multimodal. So halimbawa, oops. Sorry. Wait lang. Okay, so here so pag kukunin natin yung mode, so halimbawa dito sa ating kanina data set, yan. Wait lang. So, dun sa dating ginamit natin kanina, titignan nyo lang kung alin yung may pinakamaraming nauulit. Sa kaso natin, dalawang numbers. Itong 15 and 15, 20 and 20. So, in this case, this is our bimodal. So, the mode here is 15 and 20 kasi parehong dalawang beses sila na naulit sa dataset. But if we have another number here, which is 20, so we have 3 20s, 2 15s only. So our mode here will be 20. Okay, so ganun ibig sabihin ng mode. So when the data is nominal, mode is used. Okay, kung maalala nyo kung ano yung mga nominal data natin, examples of these are the sex of respondents in a research. Okay, ano pa ba yung mga nominal data natin? Okay, could also be their courses, the bachelor's degree nung mga group of employees maybe. Okay, those are nominal data. So when you are dealing with nominal data, then you go for the mode. Okay, halimbawa, kung kayo ay nagtitinda, sino sa inyo dyan may mga sari-sari stores? Do you guys have sari-sari stores? Ay yung mga nagtitinda naglo-online selling o kaya nagla-live selling. Meron ba sa inyo? O kaya yung nag-aalaga ng halaman na ibinebenta rin nila. Okay? Yes, Hazel, tama. Civil status is also a good example of a nominal number. Now, so paano natin nagagamit itong mode? Maybe unknowingly, hindi niyo napapansin na nagagamit niyo itong mode araw-araw. So, for example, o lalong-lalo sa mga nanay, ano? So, let's say sa mga nanay, pag isang malaking problema nila yung kung anong lulutuin nilang ulam or kung mag-grocery sila. So when you go to the grocery, most of the time, at isipin mo kung ano yung ulam, ang iisipin mo ay kung ano yung pinaka-favorite ng anak mo. Yung palagi niyang kinakain. So yun yung bibilin mo. So that's mode actually. Yung kung ano yung ulam na palaging gusto nilang kainin, na palaging nauubos. So yun yung bibilhin natin sa grocery. Halimbawa, delata ang pinag-uusapan natin. Ano ba yung delata na favorite nila? So, yun. O kaya pag nagla-live selling kayo, let's say halaman ang binebenta ninyo, kung ano yung mabili, siyempre yun yung ipopropagate ninyo na halaman sa garden ninyo kasi yun yung palaging nabibili, nauubos. So, ang consideration nyo later on kung kayo ay mag-propagate or magtatanim ulit, iko-consider nyo kung alin ba yung mabili sa live selling ninyo. Okay? So, yun. That's one of the uses of mode. Now, mode is less reported in research as it is considered by many as the least reliable measure of position, as it does not make use all the data in a distribution, unlike mean and median, which both use data in their calculation. Okay. That's the reason why most of the time ay hindi ginagamit yung mode. Although may mga practical uses ang mode, just like in my example. Now, question is, what should you consider in choosing the measure of central tendency? Okay, kasi hindi naman natin, although in SPSS, sabi ko nga, we can all calculate the mean, median, and mode. Okay, but as to which one are you going to choose to represent your data set, so there are some considerations that you have to make. By the way, guys, if you compute a data and the mean, median, and mode are equal or very, very, very close to each other, then you can conclude that the data set is normally distributed. So there is a normal distribution. And if you're going to graph the data set, parang magpo-form sila ng bell-shaped na graph. Pag bell-shaped yung graph natin, we say that the distribution is normal. Okay? So yan, that's another term, normal distribution. So one consideration that you're going to make would be the presence of outliers. So if there are outliers in the data set, mean is not a good option. Okay? The mean of a data is greatly affected by outliers, like what we mentioned earlier, and it may result in an invalid picture of the data being described. Just like in our example kanina, so may sobrang mababang score, then lalabas na mababa yung average nila. Well, in fact, most of them have scores that are above the middle of the total number of items in a test, for example. pero lalabas na mababa yung average nila. Okay? So, magkakaroon ka ngayon ng invalid picture of the data that is being described. So, lalabas 'pag gano'n, hindi nila naintindihan yung lesson na 'to particularly, so I have to reteach it. But the truth is, majority of them actually understood, okay? Of course, assuming na talagang walang nagkopyahan, nagkodigo, so that they actually understood the lesson. Pero uulitin mo kasi merong isang mababa yung score. So magkakaroon ka ngayon ng maling instructional decision, madi-delay yung pagtuturo mo. Okay? Well, in fact, isa lang pala yung hindi pumasa. And that isa, hindi naman ibig sabihin na kailangan nating iwan, puwede tayong magbigay ng enrichment na activity para sa kanya para makahabol siya doon sa the rest of the members of the group, okay? So, in the case where there is, like what we said, presence of outliers, then we can make use of the median, okay? The skewness of the distribution. When a dataset is graph and the mean, median, and mode are approximately equal, the dataset is said to be normally distributed. This is what I was saying kanina. Sorry about the sound. All right, so the graph follows a bell-shaped curve, yeah. So the data is not always normally distributed, okay? In some cases, they are skewed. When we talk about skewness, the distribution of scores is not symmetrical, okay, because of the presence of outliers, which distorts the shape of the graph. When most of the scores in a test, for example, are low and there are a few scores which are extremely high, then the graph of the distribution becomes skewed. In this case, positively skewed. Kung mas maraming mabababa, tapos may mga ilan na mataas, then positively skewed yung graph ng ating distribution. Okay? Na kung yung kabaliktaran naman, maraming matataas, and then may mga konting mababa, then magiging negatively skewed yung ating distribution. Okay? Okay. So, yun yun. Negatively skewed and positively skewed. Next would be the scale of measurement of the variable being considered. Okay, this was our previous lesson, ano, yung scales of data measurement. So the scale of measurement of the variable determines the appropriate measure of the central tendency to be used. For example, it is impossible to find the mean of sex of respondents because the variable is nominal. Yung sinabi natin kanina, if the variable is nominal, then we cannot use um, the mean. Parang, what's the average sex of the students in a classroom? Okay? When we talk about sex, this is male or female. Okay? So it makes no sense to report the mean sex of a group of individual as there is no such thing as the average sex of the group. Okay? Di ba? So, hindi natin pwedeng gamitin ang mean for nominal. So, we have here a matrix. So, mean, we can make use of the scale data. Okay, when we talk about scale, a variable can be treated as a scale when its values represent ordered categories with meaningful metrics, so that distance comparison between values are appropriate. Examples of these would be your score of students in an exam, annual income, age in years, weight, okay, and so on. Weight in kilograms or pounds. Okay, so those are scale data. So if your data is if the data set that you have is scale, then you can make use of the mean in terms of the scale of measurement, of course. Then median is ordinal and scale. Okay, alam na natin kung ano yung ordinal, yung may order, ano, na binanggit natin doon sa previous lesson natin. So if it's ordinal and scale, then we can make use of the median. Now for mode, we can make use of the nominal, ordinal, and the scale data. So pwede lahat dito sa mode. Okay? Kaya dito sabi nyo, so sa mean, kung hindi po, scale yung data ninyo, pero merong outliers, then pwede tayong mag-median. Okay? Kasi pwede rin naman ang scale data sa median. Okay? So those are some of the considerations that you are going to make in choosing which measure of central tendency are you going to use. There is an activity for SPSS here, but for some reason, I cannot launch my SPSS. I've been doing that while, okay, pwede na siyang ma-launch, ano? Did you guys open your SPSS with you? Except for the undergrad, if there are undergrads who are watching us now. Nabuksan nyo ba yung SPSS nyo? Okay, for the BSE guys, I'm sure na walang SPSS, I'm going to show you in a separate session kung paano mag-compute ng mean, median, and mode for ungroup o for group data. Kasi yung pinakita nating example ay group data. Ayun. So, there will be a separate lecture exclusively for you para doon sa manual computation. So, medyo manual yung ating computation doon. Okay? But for now, I'm just going to, nagagamit na daw po nila. Ayan, sige. That's good, ano? So, yun. Pwede nyong i-follow yung ating module doon sa kung paano mag-compute, no? Okay, there's may step na. So, do you already have the GSS 14 subset for classes statistics.sub file, right? So you already have that. So you just follow the instruction here on what you're going to do para makita mo kung paano i-compute yung ating measures of central tendency. So usually, makikita natin siya dito sa frequencies. Okay? Sa frequencies. And like what I was saying kanina, so you just put the variables here na gusto nyong tignan, kung gusto nyong i-computean ng central tendency ng mean, median, or mode. So pag meron na siya dun sa variable, ayan, like in our example, the number of brothers and sisters dito, bilang ng anak na babae at lalaki, ibig sabihin yan, okay? So, yan. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, guys. So, you can actually compute the mean, median, and mode all together in SPSS. Okay? All together in SPSS. Pwedeng sabay-sabay. I can actually compute for the quartiles, percentiles. The measure of dispersion also is here. So, standard deviation, variance, range, and so on. So, pwede rin siya. Now, the one that we are talking about earlier, the skewness of the distribution, pwede nyo ring i-click yan para may lalabas na graph for you to find out if it is positively skewed or negatively skewed yung inyong data set. Okay, so like everything is here and you can click them all together. And then when you press continue and okay, then all this data will be presented to you. Or I mean the computation or the data that you want to calculate will be presented to you in separate tables. So ganun kadali yung pagko-compute natin dito sa um, SPSS. Okay? For the mean, median, and the mode. Okay, this is an example of anong tawag dito? Output for your SPSS. Ayan o. Mean, median, and the mode. So dun sa example natin, the mean is 3.74. Then we have the median, which is 3, and then the mode, which is 2. Okay. So, yan yung ating, kung papansin niyo yung mode, mas mababa as compared to the mean and the median. Okay. So, ganun lang siya. I will be sending you guys a video, na hindi ko po naisama kasi dito sa lecture natin, but there's a video na tatanungin halimbawa, male scores ng estudyante ninyo in a test, for example, na if you would like to get the mean of the test scores of the whole class, then pwede mong gamitin itong nandito sa module natin. But if you would like to compute for the mean scores of the male and female, pwede rin natin gawin yun sa SPSS. Okay? Na i-separate mo sila. Dito sa module ninyo, ang pinakita dito is you get the mean, median, and mode as a whole. Okay? But you can also compute the mean of each subgroup. So for example, mean of male, mean of female. Ang pwede mong gawin is pwede mong i-separate. Okay? Gagawa ka ng another column or na i-separate mo yung male and female. Pero kung yung dataset mo, halo-halo yung score ng male, female, male, female, 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 ganun yung arrangement niya, mahirap na paghiwa-hiwalayan. So pwede nating gawin yon sa SPSS. Madali lang siya na kukunin mo yung separate na mean scores ng male at saka mean scores ng female. So ganun, madali lang gawin. Okay, para sa mga hindi pa nakakakita yung ating mga undergrad ng SPSS, ipakita ko lang at nag-open na yung SPSS natin. But since sabi nyo kanina yung sa masters na ano nyo na, nagamit nyo na, yun, hindi na natin ipapakita, no, yung okay. So, let's see. Where's our SPSS here? Daming, ayan. Wala pa din. Wait lang. Okay, I'm just trying to share my screen para makita natin. Ayun. So, this is how your SPSS look like. Pag na-launch mo siya, ito yung lalabas. Okay, so ito yung analyze. Okay, so this is where the frequency that we're talking about earlier. So doon sa sinasabi ko kanina, nandito siya sa data. Okay, data mo makikita yon. So yun, I'm going to share that anong tawag dito? Video to you. Wala tayong laman kasi, ano? So, hindi natin pwedeng gawin dito ngayon. Okay? So, ang gulo-gulo ng aking desktop. Yan. So, do you guys have questions to ask? Meron ba kayong itatanong? Sumobra na tayo ng magwa 1 hour na tayo. Kaya minamadali ko na siya. Hmm. So, yan lang. Hindi kaya ng isang sitting pala 'to. Yan. So, we are supposed to discuss also measure of variation. Puwede pa rin ano? Nandiyan pa ba kayo? So, we can also proceed to the measure of dispersion. So for the master students, you just follow the steps, in your module and perform yung mean, median, and mode, and compute for the mean, median, and mode. Naipakita naman dun yung steps, so you just follow that, okay? And then we proceed to the measure of dispersion. Pinakita ko rin kanina dun sa SPSS na meron na din doon yung standard deviation and variance, So madali lang, i-click mo na rin lang siya. But let's just talk about what is measure of dispersion, Dispersion or variation is the extent to which a distribution is stretched or squeezed or scattered or spread. Okay, examples of this measure of statistical dispersion are variance or variance, standard deviation, and interquartile range. For our course, we will only discuss the first two as they are the most useful and most commonly used measure of variation in educational researches. Okay, the data which will be used in our calculation and so on and so forth. Okay, will be interval and ratio levels of variables. So the variance is the sum of the square deviations from the mean divided by the number of cases minus 1, and the standard deviation is the square root of the variant. Okay? Variance. So pag meron ka ng standard deviation, let's say 5 yung lumabas na standard deviation, if you're going to square that, that is already your variance. So if the standard deviation is 5, the variance is 25. So yun yung ano nila. So we can understand these two statistical measures by looking at their differences and similarities. Tingnan natin. Standard deviation and variance are both determined by using the mean of the group of numbers in question. So the mean is the average of group of numbers, and the variance measures the average degree to which the number is different from the mean. Okay. The extent of the variance correlates to the ano kaya to? Of the overall range of the number. Meaning the variance is greater when there is a wider range of number in the group, and the variance is lesser when there is a narrower range of numbers. So in other words, pag sinabi nating variance, it's the spread. Kung yung scores, let's say 1 to 100 yung scores ng mga estudyante, kung na-spread dito yung mga scores na nakuha ng mga estudyante, then the variance is higher. The value of the variance is higher. Kapag medyo clustered itong mga scores, they tend to group together, mas lower, okay, yung range of numbers, then mas maliit yung value ng variance kasi nga measure of spread ito na tinatawag natin, okay? Note that the variance and standard deviation can never be negative. A value of 0 means that there is no variation or dispersion at all in the distribution. In that case, all the numbers in the distribution are the same. Kapag nakakompute kayo ng variance or standard deviation na equal to 0, ibig sabihin lahat ng mga member ng data sa inyong dataset ay iisang number lang yun, pare-pareho lang. Let's say parehong 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, puro 10 ang scores ng mga estudyante mo. Okay, pag i-compute mo ang standard deviation at variance, ang lalabas dyan ay 0. Kasi wala. The mean is 10. There is no deviation from the mean kasi 10 lahat sila. So 0. Okay? And then, nag-spread ba yung score? Hindi, kasi 10 nga lahat sila. So wala ding variance sa nung set na yon sa ating example. Okay? So parang ganito lang. So sabi dito guys, pag pinag-uusapan natin ang standard deviation at saka variance, they make use of the mean, sabi niya. So sa standard deviation, halimbawa, in a test of 1 to 10 score siguro, kung halimbawa ang mean score ng estudyante ninyo ay 6, and then when you computed for the standard deviation, ang lumalabas na standard deviation, let's say, ay 0.75, halimbawa lang, 0.75. Ibig sabihin, yung score ng mga estudyante ay malapit sila lahat sa 6. Okay? Because your standard deviation is very small. Okay? 0.75. Meaning, ang 0.75, it means that the scores of the students are just like deviated from the mean of 6 ng 0.75. So, pwedeng mga 7, gano'n. Ang kanilang mga scores. Malapit na malapit sila doon sa mean. Okay? As compared kapag maliit naman ang value ng inyong standard deviation, ibig sabihin magkakalapit ang scores nila or they tend to cluster in the mean score. Okay? Yung average score. Parang nandun lahat sila, malapit sila doon. Pero kapag malaki ang value ng standard deviation, ibig sabihin malalayo itong scores doon sa mean. Malalayo yung score on the average ng mga estudyante. So kung malaki yung nakuha mong mean, halimbawa, kung 6 ang average score ng mga estudyante, and then mataas ang standard deviation, let's say 2, so that the scores, some of the scores could be like around 4 or 8, maybe 9, like 3, so they do not cluster near the center. So yun yung ibig sabihin. And if the standard deviation is big, ibig sabihin highly dispersed, okay? Yung variation malaki naman yung variation, yung pagkaka-spread ng mga scores. So yun yung ibig sabihin nitong standard deviation and variance, okay? Sometimes hindi natin kino-compute ito even in researches. Pag nakikita ko sa mga research, mean lang talaga ang hinahanap nila. Or kahit ilagay mo doon sa thesis yung standard deviation, yung mga nagpa-panel minsan, they really don't care about the standard deviation. For them, it does not make sense at all kung ano yon, Pero it gives you a picture on how clustered the scores are or how dispersed the scores are. So that's the importance of your standard deviation and variance. Okay? So, akala natin mean, okay na. So, ito yung mean, nakuha na natin. Ini-interpret na natin yung mean. Okay? But we do not know how close, okay, or how far away the scores are from the mean. And you will only know that if you are going to include your measures of variability. Okay? So, I hope naintindihan ninyo itong standard deviation and variance. So there is also the same tutorial dito for your variance and standard deviation. So in this case, you make use of the data which I gave you already. So you just use, guys, your SPSS and see if mako-compute nyo or ma-follow nyo yung steps. Napakadali naman yung steps dito kasi may mga pictures din. Okay. Alright. So, meron ba kayong tanong? I think I'll have to end this lecture now kasi we've spent over an hour already. Okay, if you have follow-up questions or clarifications, guys, you can just send me a message in our GC. Okay, then we have questions. How are we going to submit our activities po pala sa Schoology? I'm going to tell you that sa GC natin. Okay, we're going to create another one, like another GC only for submissions. Okay. Okay, and we have Anton Mateo also is here. Ayan, still watching, sabi niya dito. Nandito pa. Okay, yeah, I can see that. Like, there are 17 of you guys. So, meron ba kayong ipapahabol na tanong? Wala na ba? Wala na? Okay, mukhang delayed yung inyong broadcast. Okay, so looks like wala na, no? So yeah, I think that concludes our uh, online lecture series for this specific topic. I'm going to make an announcement in your GC later on. Okay. All right. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. Have a great weekend, and thank you for joining me. I'm going to have another uh, lecture soon. So, huwag kayong magsasawa, ano? Later, the lecture will be exclusive for the masters. So, we are going to make use of a StreamYard para magkita-kita tayo ng mukha kasi 10 lang naman kayo and kaya niya yon. Yes, pwede pong balikan itong live, Pauline. Okay, that's the reason why I am choosing to put the lecture live. But of course, there's a danger kasi pwedeng mag-invade yung mga iba. It's good that I don't have that much subscribers. Okay, that's why pinili ko rin ito para anytime pwede ninyong balikan. Okay? Pwede niyo i-forward kung ayaw niyo na yung sinasabi ko, then i-forward niyo. Ganun. So, pwedeng-pwede. So, ito yung advantage na nakikita ko. Although, in Gmeet and Zoom, you can also record them. But, yun nga, mas mas gusto ko ito so that if there are other students also who are searching for the same topic, pwede nila itong, na hindi ko estudyante, pwedeng makatulong ito sa kanila. Okay? So, pwede nyo itong balikan. I do not know kung nakaset itong channel ko na pwede nyo i-download so that you can still watch it offline. Pwede yata. But this is more than an hour, so I do not know how long will it take. So, kung sa school kayo at may wifi doon, at meron yung download part, you download it so that you can watch this offline para hindi kayo gagamit ng data nyo sa bahay. So, pwede nyo pong gawin yan. Okay, so I guess that's it for today, guys. Again, goodbye and have a great weekend.